ancestors, your gods and goddesses, your nature spirits, spirits of place. You basically set it up for a big party. A brawl breaks out, it's going to go out front. We've even got the outsiders, which is what that's for.
And a parking lot across the street.
Exactly. I mean, really, it's set up perfectly. It's not going to happen. It's just not set up for it, because it'd be stupid to try and do it with it, because it just wouldn't work. It won't have that magnifying effect. If you wanted to sit there and do some sort of revenge stuff, I'd be talking to these guys. Because that would be smart.
We have Jeff.
Well, he would cause a lot of chaos, and that's why I'd be talking to Jeff.
Fair enough.
I tell him that I've got a buddy he'd love to talk to about running security at the next Wicca event.
I was actually thinking, by the way, wow, the ADF ritual, a Beltane ritual that was both day and night. That's not really Discordian thing to do. And then I'm like, wait, I ran that one. It was Robert Anton Wilson, who may or may not have written the Principia Discordia, who said, good, bad, I'm the guy with the chaos. Honestly speaking, a system which is as complex about relativism as Discordianism doesn't spend a whole lot of time on good and bad, partly because dealing with questions of serious moral relativism in a small, anonymously written book is a really bad idea. Like, if the Principia spent a whole lot of time saying, this is good, this is evil, go do these good things and go attack people who are doing evil things, or there's no such thing as good and evil, go do whatever you want, that's probably, you probably need a little bit more background than that if you don't want to cause the kind of chaos which would just overbalance the world into unpleasant chaos. And that would be terrible, because Robert Anton Wilson would never have gotten laid. No, seriously, I mean, Robert Anton Wilson, if he wrote the Principia Discordia, would not have done anything incredibly counterproductive to Robert Anton Wilson getting laid, unless he thought it was really, really important. So he probably wouldn't have wanted to cause worldwide destruction. And if you give people the great power of chaos and then say, go ahead, do whatever you want with it because there's no good and bad, you'll probably just destroy the world. So Discordians, generally, Orthodox Discordians, I mean, any individual Discordian can do what they want. But Discordians don't really think so much about good magic versus bad magic, because if we decide to start practicing bad magic, we would just end all of you. I'm sorry, it's just how it works.
Can I just add something? When anybody does any kind of magic that changes things, it influences things other than what you're trying to influence. So be aware whenever you're doing anything like that it is going to have effect. If you have a gathering and you say, I don't want it to rain. I mean, I've known a number of people who do weather magic. You may be keeping rain from somebody who needs it for their crops or what have you. So just bear in mind, whenever you're doing magic, it, like he says, not good, not bad, it's magic.
I was going to finish by saying that Discordianism, of course, doesn't have the power to end people. In fact, Discordianism in terms of magic is probably, if you wanted to compare the actual strength of magic as an overall tool, is certainly weaker than the magic used by anyone else at this table. The thing that Discordianism is really good for doing is getting people to affect each other, because the chaos that is inherent in everybody and all things is all too happy to wake up. So I think Discordianism often, if I were to give a Discordian view, an Orthodox view, Discordians don't necessarily believe in magic and they don't necessarily believe in prayer as Discordians. Because after all, it said there was once a guy who prayed for rain and then it rained for a really, 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 really long time and he got extremely wet. You there, in the glasses and no clothing.
Wait, what about the turkey curse?
These are, I mean, the turkey curse is a pretty classic standard piece of Orthodox Discordian magic.
I'm not saying there's no magic, I'm talking about good and evil magic.
Turkey curse is...
Discordianism has fantastic, powerful magic for disrupting systems of order, but systems of order aren't necessarily good or evil, they're just systems of order.
Yes.
Just rather go to him.
And I think that the point of the turkey curse is to actually, if that is a negative system of order, it will turn that in on the person who is attempting to impose that order on you. Does that make sense? I'm pretty sure that's actually what it says on the page.
Can I take back my answer and just put him up here?
Yeah, Pat, you should be up here next year.
All right.
Would
You could do a triple play.
Hey, no, I'm great talking. Wait, oh, that's right, you could.
What?
Do you want to just sit on my lap next year?
Yeah.
We'll find out right now.
It's a date.
Can you
This
stay
was the
while you
last
drink a
question.
glass of water? There's no more.
Oh, there's one more question.
Yes, there's one more question.
Stuff in my pockets.
Okay.
You feel you're not sitting in my keys?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a banana. Right?
Awesome.
We're looking for some local left. Are you sure
sure?
those
Yeah.
are your keys?
Don't worry, you're just having to.
Yeah.
All
I
good.
wouldn't say just.
All right, this is the 7th and last question. The future. Neopaganism is an evolving collection of belief systems. Gerald Gardner once said that homosexuality brings forth the wrath of the goddess. As someone. Yet at the same time, today, neo-pagans are probably the most unanimously accepting theistic community for LGBTQAI individuals.
I'll buy that for a dollar.
Paganism has changed with the times, so how do you see currently perceived taboos changing in the next several years?
Well, I feel silly because I realized as you were reading the question that this question is more about taboos than it is about gender and sexuality. So I was like, why is everyone giving gender answers? There's a question about that later. So I'll just talk then about gender, because that's what I was prepared to. The thing about gender and heathenism is that in some ways it's a non-issue. Because the fact is the lore is absolutely full of some really gender-bending gods. No, I'm serious. I mean, you all know about Odin and Valhalla, but not many people realize that Freya gets the first choice of the fallen warriors. And we have, like Skadi is a goddess who basically made war on the Aesir, the Norse gods, and like when they saw her coming, they're like, oh shit, whatever she wants, oh my god. And then also we have Loki, who gives birth at least once, possibly more. And you know, Thor wears a wedding dress. So you do have a lot of gender bending, and so many heathens are, you know, don't say, well, gender really isn't an issue. You know, we have shield maidens and male seers and this, that, and the other thing. Now, speaking from the heart here, I really, really hope that gender just stops being a thing whatsoever, because I really want there to stop being such polarity. I'm sorry, Wicca, but I want a spectrum so bad. Like I find it weird when people call me an Odin's woman, or a Githia, which is the female version of the word Gothi for priest. And it's just sort of like, why do you have to change the word to mention that I have a vagina? Like, I'm uncomfortable with this. And in fact, actually, this reminds me, the very first conversation I had with my now husband, he called me a druidess, and I railed him for it. And you know, 7 years later, all of us were married. So, but yeah, I
She
just.
wore a wedding dress.
And carried a sword too, if I recall.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I really want gender to stop being a polarity. I really want people in general, but I would love for pagans particularly to be at the forefront of spectrum in terms of gender. You know, not having to be a man in a woman's body or a masculine woman, but just a person, you know, with certain attributes. That's what I want to see.
Oh,
Is this like beat poetry?
it's a long story.
You understand, it's okay.
Well, in counter to what she said, we do not have specific polarity in it, but that there is male and female in all of us. I said that, she forgot. But anyway, back to the original question. As far as taboos, I was not thinking specifically of pagan taboos, but one of the things in societal things, I would like to see children encouraged to develop the psychic abilities they're born with, and not to see that as looked upon as something weird or something strange. I think that's very important, and I think that's the next step in human being, that we are going to be able to communicate without just using words, and we will be able to know who the F is lying. That would be very helpful. On the relationship subject, I have known women with more than one husband, and I have known men with more than one wife, and all sorts of different conglomerations in multiple marriage. And I honestly envy them. I raised my children in a nuclear family, which is one of the hardest damn things that you can do if you don't have parents and family and all to help you. It's a very lonely thing. And I would like to see group marriage legal. I think that's probably something that's going to come down the pike eventually.
Let's work on the whole.
Huh?
Let's work on.
Well, I think in all of our traditions, you could probably marry as many people as you want religiously in our tradition. I think the reason we keep talking about gender is partly because gender is the big taboo that we're challenging right now. I know I'm not that old. I'm not like, oh, I'm an old fogey. But like when I go to conventions and I see the younger kids at like Geeky Kink who are maybe 10, 15 years younger than me, and they are just fucking around with gender and it's wonderful. And again with the Dianic backlash, I'm like, gender's a false concept. I spent a lot of time in Douglas campus when I went here. Actually, it's a really funny story. I was doing my thesis and I was interviewing people, and the first question, I don't know why I asked it out loud, was male or female. And maybe the reason I asked it out loud because there was one person presenting as female who said, I don't want to answer that. And I was like, what? And she's like, well, I don't think we should find a gender, blah, blah, blah. And I thought she was crazy. And now I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, why does it all have to be gender? Why do we need separate words for everything?
We need new pronouns.
We do. But I think it has shaped, and the queer acceptance has shaped a lot. I know the current ADF Archdruid, actually, apparently in the 70s, he tried to get into like some of the British traditional Wicca, and because he was gay, they were like, no. So they lost this wonderful person who's now leading an entirely different religion because of like gender stupidity. So, I mean, just in general, it just keeps coming up. I think everybody in this room, like, I personally know at least like half this room is queer in some way. In some way. So, what?
Or curious.
I just queer, whatever. I can't say all those letters. I don't know. All right. So, yeah, in our rituals, we've already kind of dissolved it and made it a non-issue. And if you need to work with binaries in the universe, work with passive and active, day and night, I guess. I mean, we could do that, but I don't understand why the world has to be divided fundamentally, be masculine and feminine. And all that being said, I'm going to epilogue that with Raven Caldera, who's a very prominent pagan scholar and trans male. He said, but all of us in this room exist because of heterosexual reproduction. Everything in this world exists because of heterosexual reproduction. And I think because he was a trans man saying that, like physically, biologically, I don't want to hear, like just biologically, there's a sperm and an egg or whatever. And I was just like, so I guess that's a reason why it is one possible fundamental split. But if you're going to work in binaries, to be like, well, that's the binary we should work with, no, fuck that.
Well,
Literally, yeah.
We live more and more in a world where information is at our fingertips. 10 years ago, you didn't really have, maybe you did have kind of a smart PDA, you have a smartphone, you're doing all the crazy things you're doing now. Imagine what's going to be 10 years from now, let alone 20 years from now. Quantum physics is moving that much further. They just discovered the Higgs field, the Higgs boson. And I'm thinking that there's other little pieces out there too. So a lot of the psychic stuff that people put in those kind of terms, they already realize that the universe is very strange. They've already found out that causality doesn't quite work anymore. You can actually change something 1 billion years ago using certain experiments. You can, if a particle can go 4 different directions, it actually takes all 4 until you look at it. So they already know the universe is not put together in the way Newtonian physics says it is.
I win!
And as magicians, we assume we're exploiting that in one way or the other. You know, we're coming from the outside in versus from the inside out. We're not going to fit into the Newtonian view of how things operate. So my point of view is that as time moves on and as science moves forward, trying to figure out how strangely this universe is actually put together and how thought actually affects experiments, because they've already seen that already. They've already now determined that the experimenter is now, as part of the experimenting, is they are not separate, which is something interesting in itself too. Getting to the, so the hope is that we'll see more, you know, thought operated, you know, things like remote control. You don't even have to worry about picking up a remote control anymore. You just go, I want to watch, you know, whatever channel. You know. As far as the different gender-based issues and stuff like that, tolerance comes from education, plain and simple. Each generation grows up in a different society. And as someone once, I saw this even on like Bill Maher recently, it's sort of like, well, there's some people you just can't get to change their ways. And the unfortunate reality is you gotta wait till they die off. And that's a horrible thing to say, but that is the reality. There's some people you are not going to change their mind. They are so entrenched in their points of view, that's it. However, as you mentioned, the younger generation, they don't think like you do. You go 10 years younger and 10 years younger than them, and keep on going. They grow up with a very different concept of sexuality and, you know, gender roles and things of that nature. And they're going to surprise us. When we're 80s, looking back, I was like, they do what? Ah, you know, we're going to be the same, like, get off my lawn kind of stuff. You know? And that's, you know, what was wacky, you know, 100 years ago is like seriously conservative to us. And you can imagine what's going to be like 50 years from now. So things are always changing. And as globalization gets out there, it's not even a matter of what one tradition. We look at the anime, how much that's affecting the United States and how we adapt some Japanese cultures and some European cultures, and how Europe is adapting our cultures. And it's just constantly this giant mix. And that's going to continue extending. And what we thought of, you know, it's like, well, why can't I have a friend in Russia or in Africa or somewhere else? It's sort of like, I can now talk to them on my phone and live video chat. You know, it doesn't matter that they're 12 hours away. You know? So that's the kind of things that are going to change. So all those even national taboos are going to change. I mean, think about the Arab Spring. Good example. They embraced Twitter and all the rest of that stuff, and look what they did. They went, well, you know, Europe and the United States has all this stuff, and we can see what they think about what's going on over here. We can see what's available rather than just, I live in a village and I can't see anything beyond the village. They don't live in that society anymore. And the government's no over there to know how to handle it, and so they blow up. You know, so it goes from there. So like I said, I think that all the taboos, not only here, but politically, economically, etc., are going to change over the years, and hopefully for the better.
Well, going back into my standard thing of don't be freaking stupid.
And keep hard.
That is, yeah, well, it's an oversimplification. We actually have official mottos within ADF, right? One of our mottos is why not excellence, which my don't be stupid is an oversimplification of
to
it.
each other.
And
Put them in the Iron Maiden. Excellent! Oh, yes.
no blood, no death.
Except in the kitchen where it's moldy.
You didn't say death, you just said no blood.
It's the blood. That's why I'm like, wait, no, I gotta correct that. Our thing is, we're as fast as, our second motto is we are as fast as a speeding oak, which translates into we will argue something to death and then go right on back to it. So you know what? I see your thing of we're all products of heterosexual marriages, of heterosexual reproduction. At the same time, how is it that they have dongs that I could buy and I could impregnate my wife?
Because awesome.
So,
Because awesome. Is there another answer to that?
basically, where I'm going is, it's all gonna change.
They clone sheep. How long is it going to be to clone humans?
They already have.
It's just not.
It's the legality thing. They've already got the science down. It's just the legal side.
I hope we get to that point that your triad becomes legal. I think
It'd be nice, but I'm not holding my breath. I have no faith. And right now, one thing at a time, right? Basically, look, don't be stupid. If you're gonna sit there and say, oh, in 20 years, it's not gonna change. I teach college for a living, right? I work over at Middlesex County College, I'm a professor. One of the courses they have me teaching this semester is a psych course. This is my 4th semester doing it. I have an education degree in math education, and I'm teaching psychology. Okay, I have a triple major in my grad school, so it's one of those levels of, oh my God, what the hell. Back to my point. In 1 year, the generation has changed to the point where last spring, I was teaching intro to psych, and one of the things we cover is sex and gender, right? Last spring, I had people actually arguing about lesbian sex and gay sex and all this other stuff, and gender and nurture versus nature. This semester, they're like, whatever. Fuck it. If it moves, I got a condom. Right? I mean, really, it's going to change, so just prep for it. Hey, if it don't move, there's no blood sacrifice involved. Or let me edit that, people argue that to death. Because I see a bunch of people going, no, that is blood sacrifice. We will argue it to death. Right?
But hypothetically, Pat.
We really don't care. More people for the party, really.
I think actually, if I'm gonna take this the way I originally took it, I kind of need to stand up and actually declare it. And frankly, if we're talking at least about taboos in our own religions, I'm just gonna say it. I believe in a day when it will be okay for me to eat hot dog buns. I think I feel allowed to eat hot dog buns right now. I think that's a last. What? Wait.
It is a vitally important symbol! Are incredibly important. They symbolize the fact that when you try to remove disorder from a system, it actually increases the amount of disorder. And that the violent reaction to the chaos that you see as a problem is actually a larger problem. That when you create an orderly system that is all about destruction, that you get something less beneficial than a system that combines order and disorder. Okay? The bugs matter.
All right, Kat, now get a condom and fuck her.
Be stupid.
Remember, there's always doing that time.
It's never going to change, so it's okay.
Paul, if you don't get him on the panel next year, he's just gonna come up and like nest.
Oh, hey, while I have the room's attention, Philadelphia Pagan Pride Day, August 31st, Clark Park. You should come.
Well, we're plugging things. October 26th. Crucible will be at the Hotel Somerset Bridgewater.
Yay! And just to add to that, you guys were talking about tracks. I got handouts. We've got a website. Feel free to join our parties. Yay!
Wolfson and Johnny, him and me, Blues Festival at Druidry on May 11th, 5 o'clock.
Beautiful business cards. I designed them myself. You can take one. This is an all-access pass to our mailing list. It's very exclusive.
And while we're on the subject of events,
I hope you have a while.
I'd like to mention that in fact, if you actually want to impersonate a Norse pagan, it is not enough to just watch the 13th Warrior. You also need to learn how to drink from a horn without spilling it on yourself.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, we call it the heathen baptism.
Really? It's not the one
People born at a heathen event, they must have the opportunity to be
You
baptized.
must experience.
Thank you.
So as confirmed by the heathens in this room, I am wrong. All you need to do is watch the 13th Warrior.
What about steampunk, Jack?
He just caught my hair.
Oh, really? Nice.
Jack, what about steampunk?
What?
What about steampunk?
Plugging yourself.
Really, Paul?
I know.
Self-promotion.
I know.
Well, I hear that the world's largest and most fascinating, most enthralling, and most whimsical steampunk event is, fortunately for you people who live in and near New Jersey, in New Jersey, in fact near here, at the Radisson of Piscataway, New Jersey, and the Embassy Suites of Piscataway, New Jersey. And if you don't have a hotel room, you can get one at our 4th Overflow Hotel, the Holiday Inn of Somerset. You can find out more at www.steampunkworldsfair.com.
How chaotic is it?
It's so chaotic. Really, it's just pretty chaotic.
If you like Wicked Fair, you'll like this.
I don't know if you folks realize this, but again, we have people from all different paths who have a lot more in common than we have different. And one thing is that we all enjoy life.
And we know how to laugh.
Yes, we
This is
laugh.
not a sourpuss group.
Live, laugh, and
What was that? Pardon?
Live, laugh, love.
Yeah, exactly. And learn. Mark, going back to us later.
bothers me to know.
Live, laugh,
Someone who knows that area. Hey, so Paul, are you gonna play us out, or is that forever?
Come on, moderator, you can do it.
In front of the camera, Paul.
I'm looking at my phone.
It's 11 o'clock. So, it is 11 o'clock. This concludes the 20th annual Pagan panel at Rutgers University.
Thank you to the President Paul for being very organized and getting great catering.
It was all good? It was all good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll remember
You have
that.
very good
Next time,
taste in
more hot dog
panelists.
buns.
Thank you.
Yes.
So,
What about pigs in a blanket? Those work, right?
Pigs in a blanket.
Because technically there's no bun.
Oh, yes, no, I mean, in terms of am I permitted to eat them by my Discordian beliefs?
Yes.
go ahead now.
Yes. Let's learn